Arknights Endfield is currently going through their CN technical test, which is streamable. Unfortunately, I did not get in it, but we will be gathering some gameplay and some footage that I'll be able to take a look at. We'll be making a video here in a couple of days once I get all that footage put together. But today we actually got something for us, which is Talos' second, The Awakening. So basically, I think, anyway, based on this, is going to be a story trailer, which, I mean,
to share certain key information with you beforehand.
It just seems like Arknights Endfield are so close.
Talos 2 is not a peaceful place, and the people are not exactly on friendly terms with outsiders. I believe your first-hand experiences have taught you about that. The pioneers from Terra used the teleport in the polar north to reach this most alien place.
Ace!
A new land. No, that's not quite right. They reached a new planet. And entire generations gave everything they had before civilization could finally sink its roots here. Hostile environments, the blight, and merciless construct lifeforms meant that every moment of these countless years was a desperate battle for survival. Countless people gave up their lives to help civilization reach the scale we see today. As for you, Administrator, you have always turned the tide in our favor in pivotal moments during the history of Talos 2. You have felt the pain and witnessed everything. Of course, you were not always alone. In the past, Endfield Industries always fought alongside you. You are a key technical specialist of the company, and served as a trump card that delivered us from the most trying times. Many fear you, because your course of actions have them worried about their own fate. Some respect you, because your ultimate goal is to ensure that civilization survives and thrives. The Stasis Field Hibernation Pod is also known as Sarcophagus Mark II.
With a new
Whenever we meet a
sarcophagus?
challenge that we cannot solve or reach a critical crisis threshold, we would activate the device and wake you from your hibernation. No matter how people looked at you, you would always return to that cramped hibernation pod at the end of every crisis and wait for your next awakening. But for this time around, since it's all come down to this, things will be different. Perhaps you remember nothing of me, but this isn't the first time we've met. You may call me Perlica. As the supervisor of Endfield Industries, my task is to provide you with support on behalf of my company. I hope that you will live up to your past selves, have faith in me and my fellow colleagues at Endfield Industries. Use your power and wisdom to overcome the difficulties and challenges that we may encounter. Welcome to Talos 2, Administrator.
So I rewatched this a couple of times to kind of rack my thoughts on what was going on. So there's a couple of key points in here. There's a lot of parallels between what is going on with Endfield and Arknights, mainly Rhodes Island, and the parallels that are happening between Administrator and Doctor. I'm not 110% on what it means by some of the different dialogue that it's using, because in some of the references, it's making it sound like Doctor and Administrator are either part of the same race, or that they may be even the kind of, I don't want to say the same person, because it almost seems like these timelines might be happening parallel. So basically, here is a chunk of it that makes me think that it's somewhat happening at the same time. So it says the pioneers from Terra used the teleport in the polar north to reach the most alien place, a new land. So currently in our Terra, we don't know much about the polar north. Okay, there's a lot of speculations of what's going on out there, but it does kind of confirm that there's something up there that is alien-like and used the teleport to get to this brand new planet, basically. Okay, so this is how they got to Talos in the first place. So they reached a new planet, gave up entire generations that they had to sink their roots into this. So this kind of makes me think that this has happened kind of almost in parallel to what was kind of happening with us and Rhodes Island. Like they could be two different timelines, because it doesn't confirm that like part of Rhodes Island did it. They don't really confirm who's doing it. So we don't necessarily know who used the teleport to get to the new planet. So it could be the fact that they came from Terra and that they started their own kind of, you know, civilization and kind of made that fold at some point during our also kind of timeline. And maybe that's why Angelina is able to eventually find the teleporter and go up to Talos to herself, and it doesn't seem like that big of a time gap because she's finding a brand new civilization that did come from Terra, but they had, you know, a couple of generations of civilizations and nobody's really gone up north since, so they don't necessarily know what's going on in Terra. So this is another part I wanted to share. So it says, as for you, Administrator, you always turn the tide in our favor during pivotal moments during our history in Talos 2. This is also the case for Doctor, and there's a lot of explanation that Doctor had a big hand in stuff that happened with Rhodes Island and the turning course of like basically the history of it, but obviously doesn't remember much. This is basically the same outline that Administrator has, is they don't remember what's going on, but they were a huge pivotal point, and like basically their strategical mind like helped shape the history of this planet.
During the history of Talos 2, you have felt the pain and witnessed everything.
So it says basically you've been here since the beginning almost.
In the past, Enfield Industries always fought alongside.
And then there's another kind of thing that's a parallel, because it's like, okay, well, on Rhodes Island, that's something that Amiya says to us all the time. You weren't alone. We were all here to help you. You were one of our best, but we were here to support you. That's why we all follow you. That's why we care so much about you. That's basically what they're saying to Administrators. Like, hey, you've always been here. You've always been doing, you know, the best for us, but you've always been with us, and we've always been fighting beside your side.
You are a key technical specialist of the company and served as a trump card that delivered us from the most trying times.
And that's basically what the Doctor is, a trump card, somebody who's always able to come in, do the strategical, the best moves, and do the best things to make them kind of in the best positions and stuff like that.
Many fear you because your course of actions have them worried about their own fate.
Yeah, so that's another parallel where it's just like a Doctor is not necessarily, I guess I wouldn't say use the word fear, but I guess in some ways he is, because a lot of people know how strategical he can be and how like any kind of rumor they've heard of him, they're like, this dude's like a strategical genius, and that they're kind of worried about what kind of fate they would have if they encounter him. This is another moment where the sarcophagus, okay, we all know what that means, especially if you're lore readers. Doctor came from one, and now it's like, hey, you also came from one, Administrator. And basically it shares parallels on basically the idea of having amnesia and not remembering what had happened before, kind of basically the reset in the sarcophagus.
Challenge that we cannot solve or reach a critical crisis threshold, we would activate the device and wake you from your hibernation.
There's a part in here that makes me wonder, I don't know, hold on.
No matter how people looked at you, you would always return to that cramped hibernation pod at the end of every crisis and wait for your next awakening. But for this time around, since it's all come down to this, things will be different. Perhaps you remember nothing of me, but this isn't the first time we've met. You may call me Perlica. As the supervisor of Enfield Industries, my task is to provide you with support on behalf of my.
At this point, you're starting to see a lot of connections here. So Amiya and Doctor have almost the entire same relationship as Pelika and the Administrator at this point. They've always been serving together, or at least they've always known of each other, and they've been connected in this way throughout the Enfield Industries, which is just massive parallels here.
I hope that you will live up to your past selves. Have faith in me and my fellow colleagues at Enfield Industries.
So this wording here is what makes me think. So there's two different kind of things that I can think of by it saying, I hope you live up to your past self. So there's either the fact that it's like, this one's the most outlandish, I think, is that it's like Doctor, but in a different like body, technically. Maybe the sarcophagus Mark II basically transfers consciousness or something like that. That's like the far out there one. What I imagine she's actually saying is your past lives, as in like, you know, back when you did this in 1942, not an actual year, obviously, but we revived you. I hope you can do what you did in 1942 for us now in 2050 or whatever. You know what I mean? So I think that's basically what it means. The Doctor one would be like a total far out thing, but I do think that they're either part of the same race or have a very strong connection on the way that the sarcophagus is moving and the way that it's used, because at this point they're the only two people that have used it and didn't get, you know, Mephisto'd. So there's definitely a lot of connections that we're seeing throughout this trailer. I'm so happy that they're releasing some of the story aspects, because for me as a lore reader, this little drops of like hints and little types of things to start kind of like, ooh, like kind of exploring the different paths get me so much more excited. Like, I love the gameplay, I like the way it looks and stuff like that, but lore, this is what makes me excited about what's going on. And I just have so much speculation. Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.